Hey, welcome back, guys. We are in chapter 10 of our textbook. It's called Adobe Illustrator or Exploring Adobe Illustrator CS6 with CC Enhancements by Anessa Hartman. And I think it's Toland also is one of the authors. You'll hear a little bit of music in the background. This morning it's Monday in Florida and Monday morning, and Monday seems to be yard day. And so there's lawnmowers and edgers and all kinds of noise going on in the background. So I'm going to try to drown a little bit of that out with music in the dead spaces. So we are in chapter 10, and we are getting technical with this particular chapter. And the first thing that we are going to do is work a little bit with our 3D graphics mapping. This is lesson 1, and I will start the demo and probably demo this and maybe one other, and then go on based on requests. All right, so in this particular exercise, there's no lesson files, so we're going to launch Illustrator. We're going to create a new print document. I'm going to turn that down just a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't get to be too loud in the background. And we want to make sure that the unit of measure is set to inches. We want to accept all of the other defaults in the new document window, and then we're going to click OK. And I'm going to make this a little bit smaller of a window so we can follow along in the textbook as well. And then if you have been working, and I've already done this, but in case your Essentials workspace is a little messy because you've been working in it, you just go up here and do a Reset Essentials, and it will organize it for you, except for my library always pops up. I don't know why that is. But anyway, there we go. There's an organized workspace. Now we're going to set the stroke and fill colors to their default. So to do this, the only thing that you have to do is press D on your keyboard, and that automatically sets it to the default colors, or you can just click this little icon at the bottom of your toolbox. We're going to select the rectangle tool, and we're going to click once on the artboard, and that's going to bring up a dialog box, and the dimensions that are going to be used are 2.5 by 2.5 to create a perfect square. And then we're going to click OK. Now immediately the square is selected, so while it's still selected, we're going to go to Effects, and we're going to go to 3D Extrude and Bevel to access the 3D Extrude and Bevel option. Oops, sorry. Now to create a baby's block, we're going to use a slight 3-point perspective, the eye level of a baby looking down on her toy or his toy. And we are going to use the following settings to shift the viewpoint. The x-axis is going to be 41%. I'm sorry, that's a minus 41%. And then hit Tab. The y-axis, this is y. If you watch for a moment, it should give you a little tool tip. It's minus 28 degrees, and hit Tab. And then the x-axis, which is the third viewpoint, is the 18%. The extrude depth is 184. And you'll want to click on the More Options if they're not showing. We're going to preview this so you can see what's going on thus far. The light intensity should be 100%, which it is. The ambient light should be 50%, which it is. And then we're going to leave the rest of the settings at their defaults and click OK. The fill and stroke settings for this rectangle are what determines the coloring of each side of the cube. So we're going to select the cube, if it's not already selected, and mine is selected. And we're going to experiment with some different fill and stroke colors. We used, in this example, the textbook uses 20 MY, 20 for cyan, 0 for magenta, 100 for yellow, and 0 for black. Lime green for both the stroke and fill color. So we are going to, I'll just bring up my swatches panel because I'm not going to do a lot with it, but I might try the fill color as a yellow. And let's try the stroke color as something a little bit okay. And there we go. Now you want to do Command and Control, or Control depending on what system you're on, S to save. And we're going to call this block underscore your name. All right, now we're going to create the alphabet graphics for the block. But first, I am curious as to what happened to my music. Nothing. It's still there. All right. Sorry. All right, and let's get back to the textbook. So, to add the letters to the sides of the block requires a few steps. First, we need to create the letters and borders for the visible sides. To apply this to art to the cube, then we need to make these elements into symbols. And you can only use symbols to map art to a 3D object, so that's important to remember. So first, we're going to lock the block layer. So we're going to go up to our layers. Here's the block layer. And actually, we're going to name a block. And then we're going to lock it. And then we're going to add a new layer, and we're going to call it graphics. We're going to select the type tool. And then using the artboard above the blocks, we are going to use Clarendon LD standard. So let's see if we've got that. I just have Super Clarendon, so I'm going to use that. And let's see. I guess they wanted it bold, so we'll bold. And then the point size is 175 points. And then we are going to, and this is another, I just used an alternative that I had in my drop-down menu, but if you don't have Clarendon and don't find one that you want to use, you can go to the Assets folder and open block letters, select and copy the outline letters in the file. But instead, I'm going to go through this process. We're going to type a capital A, while it's still selected, mine wasn't selected, but I'm going to select it. We're going to go to Type and Create Outlines. That turns it into a vector-based object so we can more easily manipulate it. We're going to deselect the A, and we're going to repeat step 3 with a B and a C. Or you can use your own initials. Again, you want to create outlines. And there is C. Move that down a little bit. I'm going to create outlines with that as well. Now we're going to select each letter and assign a different bright, happy fill and stroke color. All right, so since I'm on C, we are going to bring up the swatches. We'll make that red with a yellow, whoops, red, and then we're going to make the stroke around it yellow. We want to increase that stroke size to 5 points, and they indicate go to the stroke panel, which is fine, or you can go up here to the stroke on the control bar and set it to 5 as well. And you'll see the impact that that has on the letter form. You want to make sure that the stroke is set to the outside to retain the integrity of the letter form. So I'm going to select it again and go up to my stroke panel and go to Show Options. And it is aligned to the center. So we want to make sure that it's aligned to the outside, which would be that selection. And you'll see what that does is that better reflects then the nature of the design. By setting it to the inside, it did skew the letter form's shape a little bit, make it look a little bit more closed off. All right, then we're going to use the rectangle tool to create a rectangle that's 2.25 by 2.25. I want to make sure I wasn't supposed to do that to the rest of the letters first. Okay, I guess not. So we're using the rectangle tool to create a rectangle that's 2.25 by 2.25. We're not going to worry about the fill and stroke just yet, but while it's selected, use the selection tool to create 2 copies. We're going to get the selection tool, and while it's still selected, we're going to hold down the Alt if you're on a PC, Option if you're on a Mac, and you'll see that that little white arrow adds to the black arrow. Click and drag, and you're going to make copies. Woo, geez Louise. Go. So now you should have 3 copies. 1 original and 2 copies, sorry. So as with the letters, select each box and assign a bright fill and a thick, vibrant stroke to each one. I want to just try this out and see what this looks like. We're going to do Object Arrange, Bring to the Front to make sure that it's at the front. I don't like that very well. So I'm going to change the fill color to the on the square to a different orange. Okay, that's not too bad. Now on the B's, I think I'm going to use greens. Whoops. So let's select the B, and we're going to fill it with a nice bright Now I think I'll fill it with a darker green, and then we'll make the stroke color a lighter green. You can do whatever colors you want, obviously. You don't need to worry about keeping it consistent with mine. Alright, so there's the letter form, and again, remember, it looks like to me that the stroke may be set to the inside rather than to the outside. So we're going to go to the stroke panel and make sure that we align the stroke to the outside. Then we're going to select the box and we are going to change the color. Let's see, what color should we use? We'll do the fill color. Geez Louise, just give me my stroke panel, okay? Alright, here are my swatches panel. We'll make the fill and then the stroke color another shade of green. We'll see how that looks. Might look kind of icky. We'll see. Again, I need to do object arrange and bring to the front. I'm just doing this to see what they look like. I don't think the textbook told us to do that. So my stroke color is evidently the same as my fill color on that. So we don't want to do that. Okay, and then let's do the same with the A. All right, so now we have the letter forms and the boxes or the squares that they're going to be associated with together. We are going to make sure that we have the Align panel open. We're going to go to Window, bring up the Align panel, and then we are going to select one letter with the selection tool. And then you're going to hold down the Shift key and select the box that you want associated with it so that we have both selected. And then we're going to click on the horizontal align icon in the Align panel. And also on the vertical align. All right, and if yours disappeared like the textbooks did, I'm going to show options. It's possible that you did not have it aligned to selection checked, but instead aligned to artboard. So just make sure that you have the align to selection checked as you align the letter forms. All right, so I'm going to select these two again, these two with a B in my instance, and I'm going to align it horizontally, align it vertically, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the A. And the way that I'm selecting them both rather than the keyboard is I'm just getting the selection tool and clicking and dragging a small kind of a vertical, I'll show you, imaginary rectangle, and that's going to pick up both of those and nothing else around it, and then do the align. All right, now if the box and the letter are not aligning properly, use the Align Panel Options menu to show options, select Align to Selection, which is what we just did. So now we're going to open the Layers panel, and we're going to click the triangle next to the graphics layer, and you'll see all of the sub-layers associated with that layer. We're going to click and drag the letter sublayer above the box sublayer, and you want to look at how this is done here. So I'm going to click and drag that above this box. I think they want them above each individual box. I'm not 100% sure, but I think so that the letter forms are above the box that they're associated with. And that is exactly what they want done. Now we're going to do a Command or Control S to save our work. And your layers should look something like this. All right, now we're going to make symbols out of these. So we're going to select one letter and its surrounding box, and then open the symbols panel. So we're going to select one letter and its surrounding box. We're going to go up to Window and Symbols. We're going to click on the new symbol icon at the bottom of the Symbols panel. And you'll see that you're going to use the panel's option menu and choose New Symbol. We'll say that this is the letter C. And you can leave these other two settings at their defaults, I guess. So we're going to click OK. Going to do the same with B. And you'll see that as soon as we do that, that's added to our symbols panel. We're going to do the same with C. Or A. Get my alphabet right here. Okay, there you go. A, B, and C. All right, and again, the reason that we need to do all of this, I know it seems like a lot of hullabaloo, but in order to add the letter forms or any shapes to a 3D box, we have to create a symbol in order for it to accept the box or whatever object in the appropriate perspective. All right, so now we're going to add the graphics to the block. This is done using the same 3D extrude effect that we applied earlier. Because we don't actually want to extrude the block a second time, we need to edit the original effect rather than choosing Effect 3D Extrude and Bevel again. This is true about every time you apply an effect to an object. So we are going to, again, the way that we did it previously, and I'll just quickly show you, is that we went up to Effect and applied Extrude and Bevel or Extrude and Bevel one or the other. If we clicked on Apply, that's going to apply the same effect twice, and we don't want to do that. So what we instead want to do is bring up the Appearance panel, drag this away. All right, so now we have the Appearance panel up, and we are going to go back to the Layers panel. I'm going to unlock that block layer, and we are going to select the cube on the artboard. And you'll see immediately in the Appearance panel, it brings up those appearances that are applied to this particular object. We're going to click on the 3D Extrude and Bevel, and that's going to open the existing element, or the existing effect, not added again. Check the preview so to make sure you can see it as it is. And again, as the textbook indicates, this makes it much more memory intensive, so unless there's a reason why you need to preview it, leave the preview box unchecked. So at the bottom of the window is a Map Art button. We're going to click that and to open a second window that provides a diagram of the cube. And there you see the diagram of the cube, along with options to select for symbols that you might want to apply to the surfaces. Now you have to select the surface of the cube that you want to decorate first. In this case, there are three of them: the top left, the top, the left, and the front. Make sure that the preview option in the Map Art dialog box is checked so you can see how this works. And And if you click on the right facing triangle to the right of the surface text box, which is right here, you can flip through the various interior and exterior surfaces of the cube. I'm going to move this over so you can see as you do it. It also identifies which portion of the face of the cube that you're actually on. All right, so we want to click the arrows to get back to surface 1, and then click on the symbol drop-down menu and select one of your letter form symbols. We're going to put A right on the front. And you'll see that indeed that's what happens when you add it to that surface. You can click and drag it around and use the handles to resize it if you want it not to take up the entire surface, for example. Make it a little bit smaller and then maybe center it. Of course, then you'd want it actually centered, right? Something like that. And then using the map art dialog box to select the surface, and then that's a symbol that you want to apply, and you'll see that in that figure 1016. Then we're either going to click the right arrow to get this to surface 9 or type 9 in the surface field. And then we're going to select another object to see 9. Another symbol, I'm sorry. You should use the same terminology so you know what I'm saying. There you go, and it's hard to see mine because it's off to this underneath one of the panels, but you'll see it as we reposition it. I should have paid more attention to the size, but so I think you get the idea here. I am going to sign off, and this, along with a C on your third surface, is how your resulting illustration will be. And then you'll see in figure 1017 in the finished baby block as well. So now we're going to do a Command or Control S, and I will upload this demo, and I may be back with a part of another one, or I may wait for your request. All right, thanks. It's been great talking to you this morning.